Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Rhodes, and I am the director of the undergraduate social work program here at UNC Greensboro. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a PowerPoint to kind of walk you through the social work program and applying to the major and just kind of give you a little bit of background of what the social work program entails. Generally, this is offered in our introduction class. I will sometimes come into the introduction social work class and do this PowerPoint in person. Um, but also we have some online classes, and because of the coronavirus, some of our classes have to be offered online. So I've decided to do a video with the PowerPoint and kind of walk you through what I would do if I came into the class and explained applying to the major. So I'll go through these PowerPoints, and then once I go through them, you can always just email me. The email will be at the beginning of the PowerPoint, and I'll try to reinforce the email at the end of the PowerPoint. But hopefully I cover most of the information through this PowerPoint presentation. And then once again, if you have any questions, you can always just ask me. So what I'm going to try to do is bring up the PowerPoint right here so that you all can see it. And here we go. So the question we often get is, why do I want to be a social worker and apply to the social work department? And of course, here's my name, Daniel Rhodes. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been doing social work, community-based social work for over 20 years now, working in a variety of settings, starting off working in HIV/AIDS as a case manager. I went and got my master's degree in social work, did community mental health for many years. This is back when we actually had community mental health centers. Worked towards my clinical licensure, have done therapeutic foster care, have worked with immigrant refugee populations, and have also done direct clinical work, which most people consider counseling, and have done clinical supervision. And right now I do a lot of community-based work around restorative justice, more kind of macro-based social work. So social work usually is divided between micro and macro practice. Micro practice, of course, working directly with individuals, and macro practice working with groups and communities. The reason I say this is because social work is a very versatile degree. And I've been able, with my social work background, to work with a wide range of populations and deal with a wide range of issues throughout my career, which has been very rewarding and enriching. So I just want to kind of reinforce that as a social worker. Once you get your social work degree, you have a lot of opportunities. So don't feel like, I am interested in one thing right now and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life in social work. You can decide to be working with a particular population in social work, and then you may decide later on you want to kind of shift gears and work with a different population. And the skills that you receive as a social work student and the skills that you obtain when you become a social worker become very versatile and can be used in a wide range of settings. I'm trying to make this go. Okay, so what is social work and why do I want to be a social worker? So often our response when I ask students why they want to be a social worker is they say, well, I want to just help people. And I think this is a great response. It makes us feel good. It placates those who ask us this question, makes them feel good, but it doesn't really get to the essence of what social work is. Just helping people is a very simplistic kind of answer. And social work is a lot more in depth than just wanting to, quote, help people. So social work is a very complex profession that is guided by very specific values and ethics. So the UNCG social work program that you're in right now is accredited by the Council of Social Work Education. The Council of Social Work Education mandates that we teach social workers about the values of ethics which are set forth by the National Association of Social Workers. So this CSWE, this Council of Social Work Education, will kind of come back around a couple of times. It seems kind of obscure as a social work student. But what that means is legitimate social work programs are accredited. So every 7 years, we have to go through a reaccreditation process where we look at our curriculum, we reevaluate how we do things. We're held to kind of ethical standards in relation to social work. And as you get out into the field and start working, there are going to be jobs that will expect you to have a degree specifically in social work that's accredited by a program that's accredited by the CSWE. So our program is accredited by the Council of Social Work Education. And then when you start looking at master's programs, also those master's programs are going to be wanting to look and see if your undergraduate program is accredited by the Council of Social Work Education. And you will want to look at master's programs that are also accredited by the Council of Social Work Education. So the NASW Code of Ethics, you should start really familiarizing yourself with the NASW Code of Ethics. There are 6 main social work values detailed by the NASW Code of Ethics, and it is required that all social workers, this includes students, adhere to the 6 social work values and ethical principles that come with them. So anybody who classifies themselves as a social worker, who has a degree in social work, you are expected to follow these values and ethics. So professors who in social work programs are expected to follow these values and ethics. People who are working in the field are expected to follow these values and ethics. And those who are credentialed are mandated by the state to follow values and ethics. So you want to really familiarize yourself with the social work code of ethics. So here are the 6 values and the ethical principles that come with them. The first value is service. And of course, the ethical principle is social workers' primary goal is to help people in need and address social problems. The second value, which is one that I really kind of reinforce with social work students, is social justice. And the ethical principles is social workers challenge social injustices. This is really important. It's one thing to say that you adhere to social justice and the values of social justice. Social work expects us to not only adhere to social justice values, but that we are also to challenge social injustices. And that's a big difference. It's one thing to say, I'm really into social justice and I believe in social justice, but the expectation for social workers is that we actually challenge those things in society that are socially unjust. So what that means is we have to have an understanding of politics. So you're going to be taking a course in American politics. You have to have an understanding of economics. You can be taking courses in economics. And you're going to be looking at these notions of what are called violence, not just violence that are perpetrated upon a person individually and personally, but what are called social and cultural violence. And so those are policies and economic ideas that are set up that actually cause social injustices in society. So social justice is one of those social work values and ethics that I am constantly reinforcing in my social work classes, and it's a human rights issue. So when I talk about social work, I talk about we are doing social justice and human rights. The third one is dignity and worth of the person. Social workers respect the inherent dignity and worth of the person. I want us to be very clear on this value, especially. Social workers respect the inherent dignity and worth of the person. That means all human beings, all people, regardless of who they are, regardless if that person is considered undocumented, if they're an immigrant or a refugee. Our ethical responsibility as social workers is that we provide services to people regardless of where they're from and who they are. So if a person is in the community and they are classified as undocumented, it is still our ethical obligation and responsibility to work with those individuals because they are human beings. The fourth one is the importance of human relationships. Social workers recognize the central importance of human relationship. That's what we do as social workers, especially working in the field, is we're constantly working on human relationships, not only within ourselves, working with people that we work with, but also people in the community. And this is why I'm always uncomfortable with the micro-macro divide, because a lot of what we do as social workers is that we also are trying to bring communities together and working on human relationships in the community. So as social workers, we do a lot of community building and community organizing. So even though you may define yourself as a social worker who's only interested in doing individual or micro practice, we're all kind of macro practitioners, and human relationships is an important part of what we do. And we're always engaging in some form of community organizing and community building. The fifth one, integrity, and social workers behave in a trustworthy manner. This is really important for social workers, especially in the work that we do in the communities. If we do not have integrity, if we cannot go into the community and have the community trust us, if we can't have those individuals, sometimes we call them clients, if we can't have those individuals that we work with trust us, then we're not going to have integrity, and it's going to be really difficult to develop that human relationship. That's the other value that we need to be working on. And then the last one is competence. Social workers practice within their areas of competence and develop, enhance their professional expertise. What that means to me as social workers is that once you finish college, your education is not done. You continue on to learn and grow. It is the expectation that social workers continue to enhance their knowledge and expertise in fields that they work in. For me, like I said, I have a clinical license. So it's expected that I have 40 hours of ongoing continuing education every 2 years to renew my license. I always get more than that because I'm always going to workshops and trainings. So the expectation is once you graduate, you don't just close your academic books and you're just like, I'm done, I don't have to learn anymore. The expectation for social workers is that you continue to learn and grow in your profession as a social worker. So what does this mean for social work students? Well, this means that our primary responsibility as social workers working in community is to advocate the values of human rights and social justice. We're always evaluating, assessing, and working towards changing the various socioeconomic and political issues that are set in place. And this is the term hegemony. I'll get into this when you take classes with me. That disenfranchise, marginalize, and oppress others. Social work is not about, quote, just helping others. It is about working towards liberation, both in ourselves and the clients and the communities we work with. Social work is social justice and human rights work in action. So often what I tell students when they have family members and friends who come up to them and say, why do you want to be a social worker? Instead of answering with the, I just kind of want to help people, I often encourage our students to tell people when they ask them that, well, I'm really here to kind of advance the values of human rights and social justice. And what that does is that does a couple things. People will usually just kind of look at you and tilt your head and kind of say, well, what do you mean? But what that really does is it triggers kind of a curiosity among the person that you're talking to. And my hope is what will happen is a dialogue will come out of that. Because when somebody asks you why you want to be a social worker and you say, I just want to help people, great. Everybody feels great about that. But when you change that and you say, I'm being a social worker, I'm going to be a social worker because I really want to advance the values of human rights and social justice, people are curious and they want to know more about that. And that places you in a position to explain the values, the ethics, and the essence of what social work is, instead of just kind of giving the pat answer, I just want to help people and it makes everybody feel better. So social work is a pedagogy of the oppressed. And this is part of what is really important to me because I teach Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And Paulo Freire is a Brazilian educator, and in his seminal work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, he notes that pedagogy, which is just a fancy term for education, pedagogy of the oppressed, animated by authentic humanist, not humanitarian generosity, presents itself as a pedagogy of humankind. Pedagogy which begins with the egoistic interest of the oppressor and egoism cloaked in false generosity of paternalism, and makes of the oppressed the objects of humanitarianism, itself maintains and embodies oppression. It is an instrument of dehumanization. So to kind of break this down, Paulo Freire is kind of critical of this idea of humanitarian work. So there's nothing wrong with humanitarianism. Humanitarianism is really important work. When we think of humanitarianism, we think of an area, generally it's a developing country or what is called a third world country, the global south, that's had a natural disaster. And those countries who have the resources come in and assist in rebuilding the country. The problem with approaching social work from this kind of humanitarian perspective is it creates a hierarchy. I have resources and means that I'm going to give to you, and you need me to help you. And this creates this kind of dynamic where you maintain this this kind of essence of oppression in society. And when you go back to those values and ethics where we're supposed to challenge social injustices, it's not about us helping people. That becomes very paternalistic, and that kind of can reinforce oppressive policies, oppressive economic policies, oppressive laws. What that does when we kind of approach it from this humanitarian paternalistic idea is we place the clients, we place the communities below us. I am the all helpful social worker coming in here to save you. And that's dehumanizing. So that's why I put this quote up there. And the reality is, as social workers, we're not here just to help people. We're here to change those systems, those socioeconomic systems that creates oppression, that marginalizes, disenfranchises people, and makes them dependent on systems that are there to help them. And so Freire kind of considers social work what we would call a scientific revolutionary humanism. So I know this is complex. It's complex in a 215 class or a 310 class. But once you start getting into the profession and once you get into my classes, we really start to kind of break this down a little bit more. But I really want you to try to think in terms of not looking at social work as this humanitarian work, but more of a humanistic work, something that is there for us to help kind of liberate the people we're working with and liberate ourselves in the same process. So why do I want to be a social worker? As social workers, you're becoming what Antonio Gramsci would call a public intellectual. You're not focused on, quote, just helping people. You're engaging in community-based work and strategizing what you need to do with communities to change the very socio-political and economic structure that disenfranchises, marginalizes, and oppresses those with whom we work with, and at the same time seeking liberation for clients and yourself. As social workers, you're becoming restorative justice practitioners, and you're becoming reflective practitioners. And once again, these are terms that you're going to get into as you advance in the social work program. When you start getting into 411, which is our Methods 1 class, we really start talking about what are restorative practices and what does it mean to be a reflective practitioner. So we would like for you to begin rethinking your response to the question, being more intentional in your answer and shifting from the basic humanitarianism response of I'm here to help people to be more intentional, reflective, and engaging statement. I am becoming a social worker to advance the values of human rights and social justice. So that's kind of the philosophical aspect of social work that I wanted to kind of pass on. So here are the nuts and bolts. What are the requirements to apply to the major? So you need to have completed Social Work 215 with a minimum grade of C. So for most of you watching this, you're probably in Social Work 215 right now. You may be in Social Work 310, the online section. And so I wanted to do this video to make sure that we do cover all our bases and students get an idea of applying to the major. So Social Work 215 is required before you can take any upper level social work class, and you must complete Social Work 215 with a minimum of C or higher. And then you must currently be enrolled in both Social Work 310 and 311, which is only offered in the fall, or have completed Social Work 215, 310, 311 with a C or higher. So generally what happens is social work students take 215 their sophomore year or second year in school, or the summer before their junior year. Once they've completed that, then the fall semester of their junior year, they need to be in both Social Work 310 and 311. They are only offered in the fall. So that means if Social Work 310 is full and you don't get in it and you say, I'm not going to worry about it, I'll take it in the spring. It's not offered in the spring. You'll have to wait an additional year before you can take it. And so you need to be in Social Work 310, 311 in the fall semester after completing Social Work 215. If one or both of those sections are full, you need to let us know and we will get you in those courses because we really want to keep you on track. The final 2 years of the social work program is kind of a block. So you need to be in 310, 311 in the fall, 315, 325, 351 in the spring, and then you go into your senior year. You need to have a minimum 2.5 GPA. This is kind of non-negotiable. You are in the School of Health and Human Sciences, And most of the programs in the School of Health and Human Sciences are professional programs, such as public health, kinesiology. And so all the professional degrees require a minimum GPA that's a little bit higher than the university GPA. So some programs in the School of Health and Human Sciences require a GPA of 3.0. Most of them usually require a GPA of 2.5 or higher. So you need to have a GPA of 2.5 or higher, have 51 credit hours completed, and you need to complete the social work application, which is generally online, and applications are due December the 7th. And we only accept applications once a year on December the 7th. So for the application process, this may change a little bit. Right now, this is what we have, where you need 2 professional references. I always get questions about these references. So I know for some of you older non-traditional students, you've been working for years, you probably have references that you can get quite easily. Some of you who are traditional students who don't have much work experience or volunteer experience, may be a little bit more challenging. We really want references that just reflect your ability to be responsible. This can often be a professor in a class that you've been in who can demonstrate that you've done pretty well in the class. It can be a volunteer experience that you've worked at. It can be a job that you've had. It can be a minister or a religious figure if you are part of a religious group. Somebody you've worked with in a religious group. It could be somebody that you've just worked with in the community, just knows about your work experience. We would prefer not to have family members, parents, spouses, fiancés, siblings, stuff like that, unless you're working for a family business and can demonstrate that in some way. So generally, we're just looking for people who can attest to your ability and your skills. An essay, which is usually written in 215 on why you want to be a social worker, and on an online application form. Generally what happens is in the fall semester, I start sending emails out letting you know applications are due. We really don't like the applications to come in too early. So we will not open up the online portal for the applications generally before November, just because we don't want to have them dispersed and spread out over a long period of time. December the 7th is the deadline, so you do have to have that application in by December the 7th. So where do I apply? Of course, application process is online. You go to the social work website under the BSW program, you go to online documents. When I send out, and I will send you several emails out about applying to the major, when I send out an email, I will always send a link to the application. So you will hear from us by January the 1st. So what that means is fall semester, you're in 310, 311. Registration opens up halfway through the fall semester. You need to register for your spring classes as if you are in the program. So you need to make sure that you register for social work 315, 325, and 351. And that means you must have complete both social work 310, 311 with a C or more to continue in social work 315, 325, and 351. So you will be registering for spring classes 315, 325, and 351 before you even apply to the major. So you just assume that you get in and you register for those classes because you want to lock those classes in. Same way with 310, 311. If those classes are full, you need to let us know, and then we will work to get you in those classes. Now, and I say January the 1st, that is the deadline that we give you, that we will let you know that you've gotten into the major. I prefer to get these done sooner than later. So what that means is December 7th deadline, application must be in by December the 7th. And then whenever the final grades are due for that particular semester, which is usually around the 14th of December or something like that. So when the final grades are due, all the final grades are posted, I pretty much sit down and start reviewing all the social work applications and start letting students know pretty quickly. My goal is to try to get you to know as soon as possible. I would prefer that you know before the holiday break instead of waiting until January. That gives you an opportunity. in case we need to look at other options for you if you didn't make the GPA, but also it gets it off your plate and you're not having to worry about it over the break. I don't have to deal with the applications over the break. So January 1st is that ultimate deadline, but I generally try to get those applications back to you as soon as I can. The one thing that will make me angry is I will start sending notices to students as I go through applications. And what will happen is you will start communicating with each other. And one person was like, oh, I got my acceptance letter. And then 2 days later, I'll get about 6 or 7 emails like, well, I haven't heard yet. Are you doing them now? What's going on? Don't email me. I will get them to you as soon as I can. I don't do them all in a day. It takes a few days to get through them. And so probably about a week after, around December the 14th, if you haven't heard back from me, you can shoot me an email just to ask, but don't, as your friend gets the application, or if your friend gets the notification, don't start emailing me asking where yours is, because that kind of irritates me a little bit. So how hard is it to get in? If you have the GPA, well-written essay, you've got the references, you get in. That's pretty much it. We're looking at that 2.5 GPA. We're going to make sure you have these references done, and then you should submit the essay. Like I said, this may change a little bit. I'm recording this in the spring semester, so we may reevaluate this over the summer, and instead of references, we may say, hey, we want the final evaluation from your volunteer placement and social work 215 and your final evaluation from social work 310. So we have not made that decision yet. So as of now, 2 references is what we're looking for. If we change that, I will just kind of let you know and send out an email to let you know about that. If you do not have the GPA, you need to come and meet with me, and we can make an individual plan. In some cases, students can rehab or recraft their GPA by doing what's called a grade replacement. So what that means is you have up to 3 grade replacements that you can do your time at UNCG. UNCG offers you the opportunity, if you take a class, we all have tanked a class at one point in our life. So let's say you take American Politics, you make a D in it, and it tanks your GPA. You can retake American Politics, make a higher grade, preferably an A or a B. You go to the Student First website. They have a grade replacement link. There's a form online that you fill out. You submit that to the Student First office. It takes about a week after the final grade is submitted for the second time that you've taken the class. And what they will do is they will replace the lower grade with the higher grade. So biology, you make a D or F in it, you retake biology. It doesn't have to be with the same professor. It just needs to be the same class. So American Politics or biology or whatever class that you've done poorly in, you retake that class, you do a higher grade in it, submit the form to the Student First office, and then they will replace the higher grade. That lower grade will always be on your transcript. It goes to the bottom of your degree works. It's there to mock you for the rest of your life, but it's not calculated in your GPA. So you get 3 of these. You get up to 3 of these. And the reason I encourage the grade replacement is because I have worked with students who have had like a 2.0 or 1.99 GPA. They've done 1 or 2 grade replacements, replaced the F with like an A, and their GPA goes way over the required 2.5 GPA mark. It can go up to 3.0 or even higher. I've seen students who really have raised their GPAs once they've done the grade replacement. So if you don't have the 2.5 GPA right now, the grade replacement may be a really good option for you to look at in improving your GPA. So other items, if you're not a social work major, you need to let me know so we can send a request to the registrar's office and update your major. A lot of students are in 215. They're trying to decide if they want to be a major. They're undecided, and then they decide they want to change their major. So your degree works will, this will change a little bit. It says here your degree works will show you as a pre-social work major. We are trying to get rid of the pre-social work designation. So for some of you who've come in and have declared social work as a major, your degree works may show you as a pre-social work major. You need to let me know that because I want to update that. The registrar's office is supposed to update it at some point. They're very slow at updating these things. Excuse me. So you can't go to the change major minor form and just change it from, if you're in sociology, to social work. You can do this in the College of Arts and Sciences. If you're in a psychology major and you decide you want to change the history, you can just go to the change major minor form online and change it. But with the professional degrees, business, public health, kinesiology, nutrition, social work, we really want to kind of sit down with you, look at where you are, where your options are, where your class standing is, what your GPA is, and make sure that you're ready to change your major to social work. 215, you're going to need to take 20 to 25 hours of what is called service learning, which is internship. In our policy course, Social Work 310, you're going to be taking 40 hours of service learning. And your senior year, you're going to be in an internship 2 days a week, the fall and spring semester, totaling 440 hours of an internship. That's a lot of hours. And so we really want students to be prepared for that, because that's an investment. And we want to make sure that you're ready to do that. So we want to sit down and see where you are. In some cases, it may be better for you to finish off the major that you're in, because if you're having to take 215 as a junior and you're having to wait an entire year to get into 310, 311, that's going to tack on an additional year for you to graduate. So these are one of the reasons why we want you to come to us and meet with us and talk to us about seeing if you want to update your major. And if you are a social work major, it's on DegreeWorks, and you have not been getting emails from me, you need to let me know so I can add you to our listserv. So criminal background history, this is really important. We do not discriminate against students based on their criminal background history. Social work is about people having opportunities and to be able to work in the field, but we need to know if you've had a criminal background history, and we need to know as soon as possible. So it says here, we do not discriminate against students with criminal background history, and committed to making sure all our students are successful. What happens is some of the agencies that we work with do require a criminal background check. And we need to know this information sooner or later so we don't have a problem placing students in the appropriate agencies. What has happened is, students have been embarrassed about this. They don't want to tell us about it. And then they go to an agency that we refer them to for their internship, and the agency requires a criminal background check. Comes back, agency is not going to have you come in because you may have lied about it, or they may have an issue with you having a criminal background. So we have agencies that we work with that we can place students who do have criminal background check, but we can't do that unless you let us know that. So the reason we need to know this is so we can help you be the most successful you can be in your social work educational career. We want to make sure we place you in an agency that's not going to have any questions about your criminal background check. We have agencies that actually want students who have felonies on their criminal background history. We have agencies that are more than willing to work with students who have numerous misdemeanors on their background history. And then we have some agencies that are like, we just can't take students with a criminal background history. But we need to know that up front so we can work with you and make sure we get you in the right agency in case you have a criminal background history. So Social Work 310 and 311, which you take after 215 and are only offered in the fall semester, are offered online and in class. So we do have one section that is offered in class and sections that are offered online. And of course, these are offered only during the fall semester. The online section allows students to consider studying abroad during the fall semester of your junior year. So in the past, students who've wanted to do study abroad for social work have only been able to do it the fall semester of their senior year. So we wanted to give students a little bit more autonomy and flexibility. So our fall semester junior year, you can take Social Work 310, 311 online and do study abroad. And then that way, it gives you a little bit more autonomy and flexibility if you want to do study abroad, and then you don't have to put things behind an entire year. You take 310, 311 online wherever you are, and then you can apply to the major while you're studying abroad, and then you just register for Social Work 315, 325, and 351. We often encourage students to consider studying abroad at least once in their career. I know it can be challenging. But it is a very useful program. It gives students a incredible experience with international work, and IPC, the International Exchange Program, works really closely with students in helping them financially to do study abroad programs. Your final year as a social work student, you are expected to be a full-time student. This does not mean that you can't work full-time. It's just very challenging. So the UNCG social work program is not a part-time program. It's not an evening program. It's not an online degree program. So during your final year, you will be expected to be in the field placement 16 hours a week, which is generally on Tuesday and Thursday. You have a seminar course, which is every other Wednesday. I have here Wednesday morning. It is probably going to be on Wednesday afternoons for you. And then you are in your methods course each semester, along with your 500 level, upper level social work electives. These are now 400 levels, so I need to update these slides a little bit. We don't offer 500 level, upper level electives. They're 400 level now. So your senior year, your final year, you're in an internship 2 days a week. Internships may be flexible, so it's 16 hours a week. You are in a Methods 1 class in the fall and a Methods 2 class in the spring. You are in a seminar class every other Wednesday, and you're taking your upper level social work electives. This is on top of whatever courses that you need to have the 120 or 122 hours to graduate. So it's a pretty intense year. So you're expected to be a full-time student your senior year. So I'm not saying you can't work full-time outside. It's just going to be very challenging. Some students do it, and a lot of our students do work, so we understand that. It's communication policy. In the social work department, we expect our students to comport themselves professionally. Social work is a professional degree, so emails are generally the best way to contact professors to obtain specific information to clarify points. So please use emails judiciously. Ask yourself if you're able to find this information in other areas before you capriciously start sending emails out inquiring about something specific. Emails are not text and should be used and should only be used if you need something clarified or if you exhausted all of the resources of seeking out information. I have this thing called Ask 3 Before Me. I got this from one of my colleagues because she has kids in school and elementary school, and they're always asking the teacher, what about this, what about this? And so the teacher had this policy of Ask 3 Before Me. So mine is Ask 3 Before Me. Look up 3 different sources. Often information can be found just by Googling it. Or you can look in the BSW handbook, or you can look at our website. I get inundated with mundane emails with students asking me questions that can easily be answered if you just kind of Google it or look it up. And this is not a generational thing. I get really frustrated with this. This is a technology thing. I think technology has created this learned helplessness where it's just, I'll just text somebody and you can just answer me, or I'll just email somebody, you can answer me really quickly. And the problem is we have about 400 students in the program. And when everybody kind of has that mentality, my email just gets flooded with mundane questions, which really, if you probably just Googled it, you could have found it and looked it up somewhere else. So really, think about what you're trying to ask. And I want you to ask us questions if you've exhausted all of the resources and you can't find the information and you're just really trying to figure out what it is. A lot of times it's very simple questions that are on the suggested plan of study. I know you may have to dig around the website a little bit, but it's in the website. You can probably find it. We have a BSW handbook. It's about 50 pages. I don't expect you to sit down and necessarily read it from cover to cover, but it is a resource and you can thumb through there. It has subheadings to let you know where information can be found. So a lot of information that gets emailed to me with questions could be found somewhere else. So just kind of think about that before you just start kind of sending me emails, asking me questions. And go back to that also, what I really need students to do when they do ask me questions in emails is I need students to be very clear and concise, and that will go to this one here. So in your email etiquette, you always use your UNCG email. Always use some type of salutation. Acknowledge our humanity. Doctor, professor, Mr., Miss, whatever. You know, this is a professional email. We are trying to get you to understand as a professional degree, especially as you get to the point where you're going to be applying for internships, you don't want to email the person who's going to be supervising you and an internship with a very informal email like, hey, yo, what's up? How are you doing? You want to be very professional because you want to present yourself professionally to the person that you're going to be working with, who's going to be supervising you in the internship. So we kind of expect you to do that with us also. I can be somewhat informal in emails, but we do expect students to be very formal. So at least acknowledge our existence. Hello, dear, how are you doing? And then ask specific questions. I am confused is not sufficient. I can't help you if I don't know what you're confused about. Can you explain the requirements for the journal assignment? This is specific and I can help. The reason I'm saying this is because, once again, we have about 400 students. An example that I give is I had a student who came in my office, and we had probably worked on a situation where I was going to work with her. Maybe I think it was waiving a class for another class. And so about 2 months later, student emailed me, very kind of curt, short email, what about X, Y, and Z? And so my response back to her was like, well, you need to take this class. And then her response back to me literally was, what has changed since the last time we talked? That was all in her email. And I'm sitting there thinking, I have several students come in my office every week. It's probably been a couple of months since I've seen the student. I cannot remember what we talked about a couple of months ago. So this informality and this kind of vagueness in emails is very frustrating for us, because then I have to kind of email you back. Could you please be more specific? So I know that you may have discussed something. We may have discussed it in great detail, but also remember, I have several students who are coming into my office every week. We have 400 students in the program, and I'm really trying to help to make sure that students are doing the right thing in the right classes they need to be. So when you do ask a question, it may seem mundane, but just say, you know, just as a reminder, we had discussed X, Y, and Z, and this is what I want to clarify and make sure that this is okay. So just please think about doing that. Practice courtesy, avoiding abbreviations like LOL or OMG. I get this quite a bit in emails. It's not a huge deal. I just want you to remember that we are trying to reinforce that we need to have email etiquette because it's a professional degree. And once you get out in the working field, I have people who are above me, the provost, the dean, the chancellor. I'm not going to email the provost of the university, hey, yo, what's up, LOL, OMG, all that stuff. I'm going to be very professional. The provost has a lot of power in the university. And so when I email the provost about something, I'm going to say, dear provost, and then I'm going to be very specific, and I'm going to be very professional in the email. So we're asking you that we're expecting to have some email etiquette when you're emailing us also. So plagiarism, I just want to kind of give you an idea. Everything you see on this PowerPoint right here has been plagiarized. So basically what happened was the link at the bottom, I copied and pasted and set it right there. And so it is referenced because I have the email link to it. But there's no quotation marks or anything like that. So I want to explain to you a little bit about plagiarism and the impact it has on students and how we are able to figure this out. So we use an online platform called Canvas. So when you upload a paper to Canvas, there's a program on Canvas called Turnitin. And what this program does is it scours the internet, it references your paper specifically, and if you have taken other people's work and has used it as your own and has not referenced, if you have not referenced it properly, Turnitin will give us a flag, and it will tell us exactly where this quote came from, like what site and who authored it. And so we're able to pick up on plagiarism just like that. So in an era before this, it was probably a little bit easier to plagiarize, but now with the internet and with programs like Canvas and this program like Turnitin, platforms like Canvas, a program like Turnitin, we can pick up on plagiarism pretty quickly. What is interesting about Turnitin is an example of plagiarism, and this is usually based on a kind of professor's discretion. So suppose you are at a community college and you have an online platform like Moodle or something like that, and you decide, let me clear that out. So you decide, you've written a paper, you submitted it to this community college, and now you're at UNCG, you're in your policy class, and the assignment is very similar to an assignment that you had at a community college 2-3 years ago. So you're like, you know what? I think I'm just going to turn in most of the same paper. So what will happen is you will submit it to Canvas, turn it in. Once you submit these papers to these online platforms, they're there forever. And so what will happen is the professor will get an alert that a paper similar to this was submitted at another institution such as Guilford Tech. Now, it won't tell us who submitted the paper, but it will just say a paper with this amount of writing is similar to a paper that was submitted to Guilford Tech or UNC Charlotte or wherever you went to school before. And so the professor will probably say, hey, looks like part of this paper is plagiarized. Now, what will happen is professors, once again, this is a discretion, because you really are supposed to be doing new assignment. So you may have done something very similar 2 years ago, but really the expectation when you're in class is when you're given an assignment that you don't recycle stuff from the old paper. You may take bits and pieces and reference yourself at some point. Also, and they don't care, there's a plethora of programs out there, websites where you can purchase papers. You can go in, you want to purchase an English paper, have somebody else write it, submit it to a class. The problem is these shady companies don't care. They're selling the same paper to like 30 or 40 other students, and these students are submitting these papers on online platforms all over the country. And so Turnitin is going to be able to check that. So plagiarism is not only you taking information from another source and using it as your own, but it's also be aware that it can pick up on if you've used this source before in another class, or if somebody else has used something very similar, which could mean that you have purchased this paper from kind of a shady online program and somebody else has purchased a similar paper. Our approach to plagiarism in the department is we try to take a pretty restorative justice approach. The university's policy is at the discretion of the faculty. It is a code of conduct violation. We can report you to, it's not student life, I think it is student life. And we can count it as a code of conduct violation, which means it can go on your permanent record. We prefer not to do that. The university actually discourages us from doing that also. What we like to do is if we've caught a student who's been plagiarizing, then we will try to work with you individually, try to come up with an assignment to help you learn about the process, what this means, what you've done. It's supposed to be an educational experience. Now, if it's an ongoing issue where you do it more than a couple of times, we do reserve the right to kind of file it as a code of conduct violation. You get charged with a code of conduct violation. It's an academic violation. It goes on your permanent record. But preferably, especially if it's a one-time account, we like to try to work with students and to make sure that we don't have to go through those process of having it be a code of conduct violation. Just to kind of let you know, students, most of you will have 120 hours. You need 120 hours to graduate. This is something I need to reinforce with students over and over and over again. You need 120 hours to graduate. You need 120 hours to graduate. Some of you may need 122. It's very rare. It depends on when you've entered school. Most of you will need 120 hours to graduate. It's on DegreeWorks. You need to keep an eye on DegreeWorks. You need to continuously monitor that. The credit hours right below the 120 hours are the credit hours that you've completed and are enrolled in. And so students have 15 hours of what are called free electives. You are at a university, which means you can take classes in history or philosophy or religion, English, whatever you're interested in. You have up to 15 hours of courses that's left up to your discretion. Some students get really edgy. They want to have a little bit more guidance. And so what I usually do is I encourage students to consider a minor, because a minor usually is around 15 to 18 hours. And so if you are running up into a semester, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got 2 more classes I need to take. I just don't know what to do. I get emails. Tell me what class to take. Tell me what class to take. Those are one of the mundane emails I get really frustrated with. It's up to you. You're an adult. You have to take responsibility for your education. So you choose a class that's interesting to you. So if you're struggling with that, you can always choose a minor. And these are just a list of examples of minors that students have looked at. I'm always partial to peace and conflict studies. I've taught peace and conflict studies courses in the past. I've done training in peace and conflict studies and work really closely with the peace and conflict studies program. And a lot of their courses are really helpful. They're skills-based courses, like conflict in the workplace, interpersonal conflict, conflict in culture. And so these are skills that you can get not only to help you in your own social work practice, but these are also skills that you can get that you can pass on to clients that you work with or communities you work with down in the future. Excuse me. So peace and conflict studies is a really good minor to look at. The English department used to have a public advocacy minor. So for those of you who are really interested in doing macro work, I'm not real familiar with it. So you may want to contact somebody in the English department, make sure they still have that public advocacy minor. But it would be, I would assume, a really good minor if you were thinking about doing macro practice, you want to do community organizing, public advocacy work, or maybe working with senators, congresspeople, and kind of more broader macro practice work. Communications is a good minor. Much like peace and conflict studies, they have courses like communicating ethically, communication in community. Gerontology is a good minor. Gerontology is in the social work program. For those of you who are interested in working with the aging population, a lot of our students like getting the minor in Human Development Family Studies. You already have to take Human Development Family Studies 212. So if you're interested in working in family and children, of course, psychology, African American, what's called African and Diaspora Studies, Women and Gender Studies, AFL Deaf Studies, Anthropology, Global Affairs, International Development. Really depends on what you're interested in. So like the public advocacy, if you want to do lobbying work, I'm sure that that public advocacy would be a really good minor. So just look at the minors, look at so the majors. You type in the majors like psychology, it gives you an idea. You can do the what if analysis, and you can add minor, and it gives you an idea of how much courses you have to take and what exactly you have to do. Like peace and conflict studies, it's a really broad minor. Pretty much any course that you take will count towards a minor, where something like Human Development Family Studies is pretty a little bit more rigid. They expect you to take certain classes to obtain that minor. So just to kind of let you know, you're going to be graduating with a BSW, Bachelor's Degree in Social Work, from a program that's accredited by the Council of Social Work Education, CSWE. So what this means is that if you have an overall GPA of 3.0 and a social work GPA of 3.5, you qualify. I bolded that or highlighted it. Qualify doesn't mean you automatically get in. You qualify to be accepted into an advanced standing Master's of Social Work program. So what that means is our program is accredited by the Council of Social Work Education. Your overall GPA is a 3.0. All your social work classes calculate up to a 3.5 GPA. You can apply to a master's program for what's called advanced standing, which means you begin your master's program in the summer and you complete your master's degree in social work in 12 months as opposed to 2 years. Most master's programs take 2 years. So if you get your degree in psychology and you decide, I think I want to become a social worker, you apply to an MSW program for a 2-year program. The reason they do this is because that first year in the master's program are really the foundational courses. You're in an internship 2 days a week. You're doing the human behavior and social environment. You're doing the policy courses, the method courses, the diversity courses. They're really trying to give you the grounding that you've gotten the 2 years in your BSW program. And so a lot of MSW programs don't want to have you replicate that. So they make you take what are called bridge courses over the summer. So you usually start in May or June, depending on the advanced standing program. You take these bridge courses and then you go straight into the second year and you complete your MSW in 2 years as opposed to 1 year. This is pretty enticing for a lot of students who decide to get their BSW degree. So just to let you know, this is an option for you. And it's also incentive to try to keep your GPA up. So this is a little premature, but just to kind of let you know, a lot of students come to MSW program or BSW programs because they do want to get their MSW and they want to get their clinical license. So once completing your MSW, if you want to work towards being a licensed clinical social worker, I have my LCSW. What you will need to do is you'll need to apply to the licensing board for what's called the LCSWA, which is a licensed clinical social work associate. Complete 2 years full-time postgraduate work, which is usually around 3,000 hours of employment, and have 100 hours of clinical supervision by a person in LCSW who has at least 2 years post LCSW experience, and you have to successfully pass clinical exam. So just to kind of think about this, it's down the road stuff for some of you who are thinking about, I really want to get my LCSW. It's great to think about it now. You really need to be focused on keeping your GPA up, but just to understand that to get your LCSW, you have to complete your MSW, work 2 years full time. I think they have a process where you can do it full time, but really you have to have 3,000 hours of employment, 100 hours of clinical supervision by a person who has an LCSW that has post 2 years LCSW experience and successfully pass a state exam. One reason I talk about this is because I think that students have this unrealistic expectation. They'll get their BSW, they'll get their MSW, they'll get their LCSW, and they can hang their shingle out. They're going to be a clinical social worker, and people will come and give them money. It's a lot more complicated than that. It's a competitive market. This requires a lot of work. You're talking about 2 years minimum after you're getting your MSW, where you have to pass a pretty rigorous state exam and be supervised by somebody that has a couple years experience. And then after you do that, what that means is you just meet the minimum competency to be a licensed clinical social worker. So if you're thinking about wanting to open up your own private practice, or if you're thinking about working and doing clinical social work, once you do all this, you really need to start thinking about specialty. I am trained in dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a form of cognitive behavioral therapy that works specifically with post-traumatic stress disorder and borderline personality disorder. I have training in short-term solution-focused therapy. I've had training in family therapy. And so you've got to really think about the long-term investment in what you're doing as a social worker. And now a lot of people are doing dual degrees where they're getting their LCSW and what's called their LCAS, which is their licensed clinical addiction specialist. So if you're going to be working with people who have substance use issues, some people are really working towards a dual licensure. So just have that in the back of your mind. Get your BSW, go get your MSW. It's not done. You gotta work, you gotta practice, you gotta study, you gotta continue to study to take the state exam. And then once you complete that state exam, you've got to work on completing trainings. Like I said, 40 hours every 2 years. At the minimum, just to renew your clinical license, you have to renew every 2 years. So going back to the very beginning, where I talked about social workers being public intellectuals, that's really the expectation of the profession. Once you complete your BSW, that doesn't mean you're done and you just close your books and you don't have to worry about studying or reading anymore. If you want to go on and get your MSW and you want to get your LCSW, you're going to be spending the rest of your career really studying and working and becoming a public intellectual. So that's the end of the PowerPoint. I'll clear that out, I think. Stop it. It will stop share. There we go. So if you have any questions, you have my email address. It's at the beginning of the video. It's dtroads@uncg.edu. So please feel free to email me some questions. I usually try to have an open door policy. So my hours will sometimes be listed, but I generally try to be in the office most as I can. So if you are in the office and you just stop by and I'm in there, I may seem busy, just say, hey, do you have a minute? And usually I will to say, yeah, sure, come on in and I'll talk to you. So good luck on your social work career. We're glad to have you in our program. And if you have any questions, please let me know, and take care.